Hi, I'm Brenda Robinson. I'm a motivational speaker, I'm a writer, I'm a consultant, and I put my focus on working with people.
Today's speaker is Brenda Robinson. I can tell you all about her, but I've spent 3 days with her, and I'm pretty sure she can tell you the story better than I can. Take it away, Brenda.
Thank you. Today's talk was to get people to think about how we can continue to do all of the things that need to be done by approaching them with a different frame. I think that, in fact, I use the statistic, we've been doing more with less for 27 years. I don't think we can keep doing more with less, but I think we could do differently and better together if we could encompass more people in what we have to do. So what I was trying to convince people of today is that we have to broaden our volunteer force so that it includes more generations, more people with more diverse skills who can put that together in a collaborative way to get much better results. I think my Japan topic, but also a topic... Actually, it comes out of the way funds have been allocated to not just to volunteer organizations, but to municipal organizations from the province, and particularly from the federal government. Because if you look back at budgets over the years, they haven't necessarily increased to match the demand. So when we use that phrase, doing more with less, that's what it's based on, is that we wanted to get exactly the same results and provide all of the same and more services and opportunities, but we weren't necessarily providing more resources with which to do that. And part of it's gone up and down, and you well know, as the budget does, but it's never gone consistently up. Well, the baby boomers, generally speaking, range in age from about 49 or 50 to 70. And they are the post-war generation, and they came back from the war and they wanted to make everything better. And so they are the hard workers, they're the responsible people, they're the most likely to give 110%. They worked hard, they played hard, they believed in excellence. One of the challenges with the baby boomers is that they don't just believe in that for themselves. They would like everybody else to make that same effort. And so sometimes, because their expectations are high, and because they've had a lot of years of being in charge and looking after things, they have a tendency to expect that things will continue the way they have created them. And now I think they're coming to realize, baby boomers are coming to realize too, that they can't keep doing it all because they have been doing so much. And so they're finding, and they're very challenged by it, how do they engage more people? So they're part of this move to say, if we can't do more with less, what do we have to do differently? And I have to give baby boomers a lot of credit because they've met the challenge of change. They just have to keep meeting it. The oldest generation are called veterans, matures, sometimes called seniors, okay? And they are over 70. And they are an incredibly important part of the volunteer workforce because they really do believe that they should do their part, they should contribute, they are reliable, they're dependable, they're punctual. But they came out of an era, and I love the three little sayings related to them. They believe that if you start something, you finish it. They believe that if you do something well the first time, you won't have to do it again. And they believe that anything worth doing is worth making 100% effort to do. One of the challenges for the older generation is things change so fast that sometimes you start something and the need for it is gone before you finish it. And they sometimes have difficulty not doing all of the steps that are in a process. And so we know that they can offer a great deal, but they are not going to be able to offer for that many more years what they've traditionally offered, which was, quite frankly, some of the hard work of volunteer events. So we need to challenge ourselves to see how they could contribute differently because they still want to contribute. At GenX, Gen X are the children of the baby boomers, and interestingly enough, they are the smallest generation in Canada, although that has started to change because of immigration. A lot of people coming to Canada are in that age group. However, Gen X are probably the most capable generation who aren't necessarily working to capacity, especially in the volunteer force. Because Gen X has often been, they're being held back, and this breaks my heart to say this, being held back by baby boomers who are holding the positions that they could hold. Gen X are the most resourceful, the most resilient. They are the best analyzers and the best problem solvers. They were the latchkey kids. They were home alone, they had responsibility, but I always laugh and say, but they learned how to solve their own problems. They had to put out the fire and bury the evidence before their parents got home. And we laugh about it, but the truth is they're problem solvers. We need them. Gen Y, also called gamers and millennials. They range in age from about 22 to 35, and they are, and I say this in all honesty, they are probably the most innovative, the most creative, but their real strength is this: they work smarter, not harder. They look for shortcuts, they find better ways to do things, they research who's done what and how that can help us. They're just an amazing group of people for challenging us to move out of the way we've always done things into the way things could be done better. Gen Y, WHY, are teenagers, are new teenagers, are 15 to 22. And the interesting thing about Gen Y is that they are assertive and they are challenging. But when you think about it, what they're challenging is the way things have always been done, because they're so ready to make the move to doing things differently. They're not afraid, they're quite capable of asking questions, and they believe that their opinions are needed and that we would welcome their opinions. And it kind of catches people by surprise, because they often try to tell us new things that we could do before we've asked for it, because they assert themselves. However, having said that, I think that if we wish to work with them, we're going to have to realize that they want to be, and I'll use the 3 words, engaged, involved, and included. So, under the teenage years, and it's very interesting because the new teenager is actually a little older, and children probably don't behave like teenagers now until they're about 15 in their social skills, but they are far more advanced in their intellectual skills and their reasoning skills than children were at one point. The generation of 9 to 15-year-olds are called extremers. They believe they can and do whatever it is that they want to do, and the role of adults is to make sure that they succeed safely. They are probably, without question, the children of people who are very, very interested in what they do, where they go, how they are involved, and their capability to work with technology and social media far exceeds any of the adults that they know in terms of communicating in that way. However, they're the no-fear generation. So they have no fear of authority, they have no fear of adults, they don't fear the principal, they don't fear the teacher, they don't fear, because they believe that people want to work with them and help them. Under them, little group, 3 to 9-year-olds called Extremer Plus, because they're even more extreme than the extremers. But they are the children who have been, the term that we use is extreme parented. Many of them have never been to a playground without an adult. They go everywhere in the company of older people. So they're so used to interacting with older people that, again, they have no problem doing that, okay? And they believe that we're there to support them. And they interrupt, which bothers some of the older generation tremendously. But they're interrupting because they're engaged. And then the youngest generation are called Alpha. And I always use the example that they're in charge, they're in charge. So new babies today sit in the back seat in the car seat, and one of the parents sits with them. The other parent drives, because we are totally engaged in parenting the alpha child. So they will be with their parents when they volunteer. Let's get ready to use them. So if we're going to recruit, retain, motivate, and manage all the generations, here are a few thoughts that you might put into place. When we are working with that older generation, the veterans and matures, we want to be aware that they like to do things that have a finish. Right? They like to complete a task and then move on. They like to work hard. When they're finished work, they can play. And they like to be punctual, and they like people to be reliable. If you're working with the baby boomers are the most organized generation in our society. So if you need things organized, if you need them documented, we are the folks who can do that for you. However, the baby boomers like to know that things will be done well and that they will be completed effectively. When you're working with Gen X, keep in mind that Gen X has a good sense of balance of time. So quite frankly, Gen X is probably going to want to bring their children with them when they volunteer, because they're not going to take time away from their children to do things. However, why don't we take advantage of that and find ways to engage those children earlier? Gen X is also good at problem solving, good at analyzing, so let them work through things. That's what they can do. If we're going to work with Gen Y, we have to keep in mind that they're the most innovative and creative people, and they are going to try to find better ways to do things. Let's ask them. In fact, let's ask them, what do you think we're doing that we could do differently that would help us be more successful? That's an opinion they'd like to share. If you're going to work with Gen Y, be ready to talk in logic. They like to understand why things are being done the way they're being done, and why we should change or why we shouldn't change, because that's who they are. If you're going to work with the extremers, they believe that they should be listened to, they need to be heard, they want to be part of what you do. Let them join. Extremer plus, even take it a step further. Make sure that you're engaging with them, that you're thanking them, that you're catching up with them, that you understand their contribution. And we aren't sure about Alpha yet, but let's get ready, because I think they're probably going to feel that they have a big role to play with everybody they work with. Well, if you want more information about this, I have a really good website. Simply Google either my name, Brenda Robinson, or my little company is called RobCan, R-O-B-C-A-N. And on the website, you will find resources, information, articles, but you will also find some interesting little challenges and tests that get you to think about what generations you relate best to and what generations relate best to you. It's a good place to go. Enjoy.